Cyborg Assassin 1, Chapter 15, Hiding Place. As Oshun positioned herself at the end of the arena, Admiral Marsh opened an air sphere in her hand. "While we're standing by for the Mayleedian vessel to pick up the injured, I thought you'd like to know what we shall contend against." She expanded the orb and forced it flat against the wall. After spreading it wide enough across the surface, she nodded with satisfaction and used her remote. A video played showing men and a woman in black trench coats raining bullets on shoppers in a sky mall. Although Oshun's stomach did a double flip, she withheld from retching up the contents of her last meal. It didn't ease her distress when she turned away. The screams between gunfire made hot tears well because it was real and not a game. Even children fell dead as bullets smashed open their bodies. Oshun's head recoiled. Admiral Marsh clasped her hands under her belly. "We require that you stop these massacres." She fiddled with the modest display panel at the bottom of the circle, and a new video played. A drone must have filmed the footage. It flew over a barbed wire fence and then through an open hatch close to a small square building. Oshun swayed slightly. "I've been there." Admiral Marsh whipped out the airsphere remote and pressed pause. "Who said that?" "Me, Oshun Musa." She walked between groups of gaping soldiers until she settled in front of the closest line of viewers. "You've been there?" "In a game, yes. The communists caught me after I detonated President Isleworth's tank." The area around the woman's eyes tightened into fine creases. "Ah, the child, soon-to-be veteran. You survived." Oshun nodded, and her lip quivered. "I saw Beluvians." "I did as well," a spotty young man with a deep voice said. "And me." The girl at the front tossed her silver curls. "Why are there Beluvians in the game?" "I can't say now, but I promise that once we arrive on Arceus, you'll be told." Mutters broke out around the hall. "Stop speaking. I must teach you a little about what our enemy is doing to its infidels and its own communists." She pressed the play button. "Watch." The drone flew over the heads of busy crowds in the passageway. Everyone wore identical green suits and children accompanied adults. They seemed happy as they entered a food hall, talking noisily. Marsh formed a double chin. "While there are a few places like this one on the continent, Vorta, many of the unlucky locals do not receive such an experience." She typed on the interface. The picture shifted to people working the land. Some sowed seeds while others harvested black stalks of grain with sickles and rakes. Rags hung off their skinny frames, and they looked unhappy and famished. The view changed again to that of an elderly couple standing outside a shack. The woman sobbed and nodded at her husband. He held up a revolver and shot her in the head before turning the barrel to his own. "Why?" someone challenged. Marsh paused the program. "Why did they commit suicide?" "Yes." "President Isleworth devalued the monetary vote dollar by 10. They were poor before that. The entire country was. They have no option but to starve or die sooner." Oshun's mouth curled in dislike for the man called Isleworth as the scene switched repeatedly from coal mines to places of forced labour. The shaved-headed prisoners wore striped uniforms. They stood in lines and broke up rocks with pickaxes. "Do you wonder what these adults and children did wrong to end up in a camp like this?" The teenagers shrugged. "They lived across the sea. They had comfortable lives in a high-tech society. That was their only crime. Some were professors, others religious leaders. President Isleworth didn't wish anyone to be different. From his perception, everyone ought to possess the same, think the same. They must believe that he is absolute and that nobody is greater." "It hardly sounds like they're treated the same if he has to be so great," the same silver-haired girl said, looking around for agreement. "We need to tear down their camps," Marsh said, "feed the starving and wipe out this political propaganda." She sucked in a harsh breath and blew it out slowly. Also, we must imprison the radicals and destroy Isleworth's nuclear warheads. The new video displayed a missile flying over the sea and falling into the water. He wants to detonate the capitalists across the ocean. We mustn't let him. As a door rattled open, a robot on wheels entered the gallery. A strip of blue light in the place of eyes flashed when he talked. Oshun Musa is requested to receive a call from a Nerthus Military general. Shall I accompany her to the free airsphere room on this floor? Yes, Oshun, you go along, then come straight back, Marsh said. An army general faced Oshun from within an airsphere, his dark eyes bored into her from a tanned face and above a black beard. You are to quit this mission. Prepare yourself for collection. Assistance from a Mayleedian vessel will pick you up with the sick and injured. But I have no family. Didn't anyone tell you that your mother may live? She drew in a slow, steady breath as her pulse speeded. Liars. Someone said that. So what makes you assume there's no one waiting at home? My instinct. Numbness gripped her body and mind. And you trust that feeling? You're willing to give up hope? Is she alive? As his eyes narrowed, his hairy brows tugged down in concentration. I'm uncertain. Heaviness took hold of her. I can't return. I mustn't. You don't have an option. But I killed a boy. It was an accident. Won't I end up in prison? No. She avoided eye contact. Another lie? What's going to happen to me? You'll be adopted. How about working for the military? I'm a cyborg now. I have uses. Plain limbs which grow with you may replace those weaponized arms and legs. Surely you don't want to take growth inhibitors. Preventing Isleworth from hurting more is what I choose to do as a volunteer Marine. I'll pause my growing while I complete the Arceus mission. No. Join the military when you're 18, like your friends. They're not my friends. All the more reason to come home. I have no home without my mum. We'll find you one. Oshun thought about the video she'd just watched. She had to help stop those terrorists and rescue the prisoners. The poverty and starvation had to finish. I can work as a child spy and infiltrate a communist facility where the killers live. They won't suspect a minor. But you're no longer a regular kid. You're a weaponized cyborg. I'll order someone to restore you with normal prosthetics, matching your skin color and shade. No one would ever know you lost your arms and legs. She swallowed. It sounded good. Living with a strange family or in the centre for juvenile delinquents didn't, though. Please, let me fly to Arceus. I can hide and mature, then fight. He shook his head. If you develop and get bigger, those limbs will cause serious injury. They're connected to your nerves and spine, too. Prepare to board the other ship with the others. The inside of her sphere went black. Her heart froze, then pounded. If they hadn't all lied about Mum, she might consider his words, but they'd tricked her once already. She'd slaughtered an innocent youth, and they might punish her for it. As the robot escorted her back towards the hall, a man covered in greasy overalls passed her. She blinked rapidly, watching him continue along the aisle. She peered down at the robot's cube-shaped face. I can make it from here. Are you sure? Of course, she pointed. It's just there. If you don't mind. Oshun stopped and put her hands on her hips. It's fine, go. The robot swiveled and headed back the other way. As the engineer rounded the corner, Oshun pursued him. He accessed a security door and she rushed towards it, sticking her metal hand inside to inhibit it from closing. Clash! Her breath caught in her throat and she snooped around. But he'd already moved on. She dashed down the corridor, tiptoeing on the rubber pads of her feet to prevent more clashing. After catching sight of him, she edged beside the edge. The hum of machines increased in volume as the ramp declined, then took several sharp corners to what looked like the craft's depths. She followed him into a cold, cavernous room with pipes and central columns with a space between where a swirling ball of electric green pulsated. As she ducked behind some humming tubes, she gazed in awe at the energy. Were those captured tachyon particles? Heart hammering, Oshun dropped to her knees and peered between ducts. He'd gone to the chamber's brim and stared at several flattened air-sphere interfaces. Footsteps clanged on the metal floor behind Oshun. She shuffled backwards before anyone spotted her. "We'll draw some power from the tachyon particles when the captain gives the go-ahead." The woman's shoes clinked as she approached the green light hovering in the space between the columns.
"How long until the Mayleedians get here?" he asked without turning.
She stalked towards him and rested a hand on his shoulder. "They're here, just preparing the sick to vacate the spaceship."
"Good. Feeding the tachyons considerable energy to wait about is costing Nerthus millions."
The man twisted around. Oshun sneaked back to her original position, hoping to hide there until the Mayleedian vessel departed. "Shall I tell the engineering crew to prepare for cryosleep?" the woman suggested.
"No, come here."
He pulled her into his embrace and she giggled as he kissed her ear. Oshun flinched. Where was the cryo lounge? If she weren't able to locate it, she'd die. But this couple would need to go there too, so she'd follow them and hope they didn't see her. Finley traipsed back and forth in his office, expecting for someone to call and say they'd found Oshun. He rubbed his brow to ward off a headache. When Oshun returned to Nerthus, the girl could live normally and save herself from war trauma. The military had put her through too much already, pretending it could bring her mother back to life. Actual war was nothing like gaming, not if you fought in it. Finley knew better than any teenager here. Kids shouldn't carry guns and kill people. They should be at school, play outside and have fun with their classmates. That was how his life had been before the rebels came to his village. He could see it now. The memory would never leave him in peace. Fire, machetes, blood. Father dying. "Take my son. Don't kill him. He's an expert hunter and understands how to use a gun." Finley leaned over to hold on to the edge of his desk, finding himself with a sudden loss of breath. When his airsphere remote vibrated on the desk's surface, he opened the ball of light in his hand. The peach-skinned captain stared up at him with salmon-pink eyes.
"Anything on, Oshun?"
"Nothing."
"The particle wranglers are getting eager to leave."
Finley's throat constricted at the thought of Oshun being trapped somewhere. He chewed a nail.
"Without a cryo-sponge, she's dead."
"She'd understand that. Perhaps she'll find one."
"Of the many cryo-suites, you said yourself she didn't wish to return."
He raked a hand through his hair. Damn! Where would he hide if he were her? Engineering.
"Order your cadets to go to their cryo-sponges."
Finley did as ordered. He rubbed his hands down his trousers as he proceeded towards the male's cryo-suite, eyeing a security access door on the way. He stopped in his tracks and did a U-turn. He followed the passageways and ramps down to the generator room. What was he even doing? Going here without telling the captain was asking for trouble. He increased his speed along declining shafts and finally reached the place where the spaceship captured and stored tachyon particles for its faster-than-light speed travel. A man and woman were walking away down a co-joining tunnel. Finley's chest tightened. "Wait!" The couple turned.
"What are you doing down here?"
A frown sliced the man's face. Oshun slumped closer to the floor when she heard Finley run in. Her mouth opened and closed, and she peeped at their legs through a gap between two of the lower tubes. "Have you seen a girl?"
"A girl?"
The man winced.
"No, why would you see a girl?"
"A child mercenary is lost in the ship. She didn't want to take the Mayleedian vessel back to Nerthus."
"Is she injured?"
"No, but she isn't supposed to come on this mission." "Dear," the woman said, "the poor thing will die without a cryo-egg once the ship's computer system takes energy from the tachyons." Oshun held her breath and jumped to her feet. "Then take me with you." Cords twanged in Finley's neck. "I knew you'd be here. Then why didn't you send anyone else to look for me?" "Tell the captain you found her."
"Tell the captain you found her,"
the man said. Oshun walked jerkily towards them. "Don't, please!" Her eyes appeared wet, darting, and not settled. "Whatever they do to me on Nerthus, it won't be good." "You're going home!" The woman laughed. "Not Arceus anymore. If I were you, I'd be straight on that Mayleedian freighter, and please to get the hell away from that planet." Finley cringed when Oshun burst into tears. She told them everything which had happened to her since she found out her mum had died, and with sobs and wails explained how the Cyborg Military had informed her they'd try to bring her mum back to life if she trained to be a soldier. Her crying got louder when she admitted to accidentally killing a teenage boy on her first day in the army barracks. "They'll put me in a children's prison or worse." Finley stared at her in disbelief. "You killed him?" "I didn't mean to." The woman dropped into a squat and opened her arms to the crying child. Oshun burrowed her head into her chest, accepting the embrace. It brought home the fact she was only a child, and his heartbeat slowed as he scanned her weeping form. "Poor sweetie, this is just terrible," the man said. "I know the Nerthus government is corrupt." The woman rubbed Oshun's back. "I didn't realize some military divisions were that corrupt, though, especially Cyborgs." The guy shook his head. "I don't feel surprised by it at all." "I say we let her sleep in our engineering lounge," the woman said. "I'll take her with me." Finley's heart rate picked up. "And when we reach the system?" "She may stay on the ship with the other engineers and me," the woman said. "I'll pretend she's my apprentice Tachon engineer." "She looks young for an apprentice," her male friend said. "We'll say she looks so young because of cryosleep. Pretend she came 17 light years from Mayleeda to get to the Nerthus first. That would add years to her age." "Excuse me," Finley folded his arms across his chest. "I'm her commander." He looked at Oshun's big wet eyes, wishing he could ease her pain. "Okay, do it. I'll get back and not mention a thing." Chapter 16. A Friend. Frankie stared up at the red light with one healthy eye. A doctor had come to Zarita's apartment to apply eye drops to his damaged cornea, paste a cool sticky substance over his half-burned face, and give him antibiotics. Before leaving, she had told Zarita to apply the paste every 2 hours. He cringed from the pain of his tightened skin across half his face. Zarita looked down at him from above. The lamplight beside the armchair from which he reclined lit up her face. Up close, her black eyeballs were compound eyes and composed of hundreds of hexagonal lenses like a fly, but her expression looked as human as any other. Although her eyes stretched across a third of her face, a small line creased between her thin white brows. Her lips parted with care as she dabbed ointment on his skin. It smelled sweet like aniseed. A faint sigh escaped her lips. "I can only guess how much that poor girl's been through." She shook her head minutely. "She had no reason to burn you like that, though. I can't promise that you won't be scarred for life." "She wants to rescue Zing. Says that because he saved my life, I should return the favor." Zarita rubbed a slender white hand over her shaved head, then dipped her dabbing cloth into the bowl of sticky fluid and smeared it over his sore eyelid. "I might have thought it a wise choice before, but I can't see you flying a hoverboard when you just have the use of one eye." The hair stiffened on the nape of his neck. "Do you think I'll be blind?" "I can't say. Maybe, maybe not. The doctor didn't know either. She'll return tomorrow." "What about Isa and Bella? Where are they?" "In Isa's family home, taking a rest. It's no good her being there alone. Bella is staying with her for now. Who knows?" She shrugged. "She may stay with her indefinitely, considering Isa lost her family." He rubbed his chest. "I have no one either." She stroked the hairline of his forehead. "That's not true. You have me. I always promised little Dave that anyone he cared about I'd care for too. I have to look after you as if you were my own." His body chilled as he thought about Mum and all the hardships his parents had been through to feed him. She used to go out late at night wearing the shortest skirts and tops which showed off her cleavage. Only at this age, after her death, did he understand how she made some cash. One time she arrived home in the morning, bruised and bleeding. Zarita's voice brought him back to the present. The doctor told me to apply 2 layers of balm every 2 hours. Is that okay? Yes. After she applied another layer of the jelly-like substance, she reclined. Let this dry. I've made up a bed for you in one of the spare rooms. How many rooms are there in this rabbit warren? Are you comfortable? Yes. She stood, leaving him to rest in the armchair. Would you like me to read you a book? Yes. That's what I hoped you would offer when you contacted me earlier today, before I met Isa and heard the bad news. You poor boy. It's been nothing but bad news. For you, I regret bringing you down to meet her. I'm sorry. It ain't your fault. Tell me first, were you as fond of Dave as he was of you? Yes. When he shot all those shoppers and tourists, I hated his guts. His toes curled up. After he took me to the communist joint, he looked after me. He looked after my sparry cat too, Olio. Still standing, she let out a faint laugh. A sparry cat? Have you never seen one? I can't say I have. I thought I knew a lot about the animals of this planet, but that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. We don't have any animals here. The risk of contamination is too high. So you've always had a vegan diet? Yes, I was born here. I don't eat meat or animal products. No one been hunting up there? Thought they'd give it a try. Perhaps, but I haven't. I'm going to miss my meat. You'll get used to it. He couldn't see her as he reclined with half his face covered in medicine and leaves, but he heard her leafing through her books. It sounded nice, gentle. I never thought Dave would become a terrorist, she said. I assumed he would continue to run different errands. What do you mean? Would you prefer to hear a fiction or non-fiction story? What does that even mean? Sorry, I forgot you had no education. Fiction means that it's not true. Non-fiction means it is true. How does that even make sense? She laughed. Well, true or not true? If you want to satisfy my curiosity, I'd love to hear about your history, your true story. How do I tell you this? Oh, so much pain, so many painful memories. I told you all my painful memories. I turned myself inside out when you questioned me. Now I've had half my face burned off. It's the least you could do. She groaned, and her armchair creaked as she lowered herself beside him. She smelled like jasmine flowers which climbed up maglev columns in the summer. Porcelain clinked when she poured herself a cup of tea. Sorry for not offering you more tea before the doctor came. I took it away as soon as Isa did what she did. Don't worry, I've had enough. If I have more, I'll need to go to the restroom. I guess there's no getting up with this stuff all over my face. True. I'm waiting for your story. I was a prisoner once at the place where you lived with Dave. The communists found my sister and me picking berries in the forest. My parents were bathing in the river. Luckily, the soldiers didn't catch them too. Her voice warbled and she sniffed. My sister got incredibly sick in the underground cell. She died. She was only 5. Dave was a kid like me. He was younger, though. I was 10 and he was half my height. Was he a prisoner too? No. He was just a child born in a place with other communist children. Unlike me, he had a good life. In a way, you know how the communists who lived there changed their jobs every couple of weeks. Yes, I worked there for a month, gutting fish. That doesn't sound very pleasant. It wasn't. I was looking forward to my next job, learning electronics. I never got to that stage, though. The bosses decided they wanted me to train as a terrorist like Dave. You told me before. Little Dave ended up working for an entire month too, feeding the prisoners gruel. This was long after my sister had died. We chatted a little every day at first. Then he would stay longer. He'd sneak me in all kinds of treats, donuts from the common room, biscuits, bread rolls, anything which was easy to hide under his coat. Frankie barked with laughter. He did exactly the same thing for my sparry cat, Olio. You remember his name? It appears I still have a lot to learn. You must tell me more about Olio sometime. Not now. You ain't getting out of telling me your story, your true story. What was it? Non-fiction. You've got an excellent memory for hard words. Okay, so it's obvious, isn't it? We became friends. Did he help you escape? You've got it right, but I didn't know how to fly a hoverboard, so Dave took the risk and escorted me. It beats me how Isa and that Fennec got all the way here on an Arthean hoverboard. They aren't designed to take the weight of 2 adults. They're as skinny as a couple of skeletons. Short, too. I expect you're right. We'll soon change all that. Our cooks will fatten them up, and the doctors and nurses will check up on them, too. So that's it. That's your story. Pretty much. I showed him the way to the caves. I made him promise never to tell a soul. She stopped talking to gulp her tea. The silence felt comfortable. Isa could blame your day for her father and stepmother's deaths. What happened? Less than a week ago, communist troops massacred 400 hidden city citizens, including her father and Xing's mother. They were watching the eclipse on a secluded bay. That's where they abducted Isa from. So Xing and Isa aren't related? No, one is black and the other is white. Mixed-race Beluvians have brown skin. Can you remember when I told you I was born on a planet called New Belu? Yes, warmth washed over him. He'd been looking forward to understanding the history more. New Belu and Old Belu orbit the same K-star, an orange dwarf. There was a terrible war over the environment, and the Free Land Party left the black Beluvians to keep their rocky planet. Then we invaded a water world. Xing comes from a different planet to Isa. Their ascendants for the last 260 years have, yes, but before then the blacks and whites all came from Old Belu. So how did you all come here if you were from different planets? My mother, father, and a group of their New Beluvian friends were descendants of a secret group of space scientists and engineers formed during the environmental war on Old Belu. They called it the Circle of Stars, otherwise known as COS. A war? That's right, before the white Beluvian chairman of the Free Land Party forced the other whites to leave their rocky world, these scientists agreed with the black scientists of COS to meet on a moon at the edge of their system. They had a time and a date. From there, they'd go together to planet Arceus, 15 light years away. And they managed? Yes, COS had fantastic spaceships and went into cryosleep, just as people do these days. Why did they end up underground? It was too dangerous to let the previous habitants know we were here. The Mayleedians and Renidians? Yes. Why wouldn't they welcome them on their planet? The communists don't like foreigners. It hasn't always belonged to Mayleedians and Renidians, you know. They're not the natives of this world. How so? They come from another system too, but that was just short of 1 million years ago, so it's fair enough for them to claim Arceus as their own. It's a shame you have to live underground. But we can provide sanctum to victims of war. War may break out at any moment. But how do you help them if no one is to leave? This is only the case since the massacre on the beach. You had people rescue captives before that happened? Yes, but at the moment the risk of Hidden City being discovered is too high. The communists know there's a secret race of Beluvians somewhere. But you'd let me go alone? Before the burn, yes, it was difficult to let Xing go because he looks like an alien to the communists, but seeing as you don't, I might have shown you another way out of here. Determination set seed in Frankie's being. He now understood what he had to do. I want to rescue Xing. Your it. Will anyone else try? No, it's forbidden. It puts Hidden City at the risk of being exposed. That gives me a chance to change things. Show me the other route. I can but try. Let's wait for your eye to heal first. That will be too late. Her voice tightened. While you're half blind? Yes. How will you be able to do that? Do you have fold-away hoverboards here? He remembered seeing a woman with one like that next to his garden on level -1. She'd been showing it to her 2 jealous brothers. Some residents do. They work hard for luxuries like that. If I get hold of one, I think I'll get in. His smile slackened, but I doubt it'll carry weight for Xing and me. Not just that, more tea sloshed in Zarita's pot. Isa said Xing had broken at least one leg. How? He fell from his hover. They shot him down when he was about to get away. He grimaced. Do you still plan to return? Carrying this guilt inside won't do me any good. Before Xing went, I should have offered to help. I had my hoverboard. But all I was interested in was getting asylum here. He saved my life. Don't beat yourself up about it. His skin tingled as sweat formed under the fresh shirt she'd given him to wear. Didn't she feel saddened by the fact the communist military had slaughtered so many of her people? How could she just sit here, drinking tea and reading books? She and her 4 sisters, whoever they were, should build an army of their own. Would you like to know more about the history of Hidden City? Yes, and how you and your 4 sisters came to be its rulers. What happened to your parents? Did the communists ever capture them? No, both passed away with old age last year. I miss them dearly. The death of my sister broke their hearts 50 years ago, and their hearts hadn't mended when they died. Mum died only a week after Dad. They were both in their 90s, but they found joy before they left this world. My daughter, Hinny, got married. Do you have other children? Just one daughter. She lives on -10, an alpine habitat. What food do you get from there? Not much. We harvest some wood and mostly grow wild flowers. Look, the time has flown and you have learned a little about the 2 inhabited Beluvian planets which orbit their orange sun. Was it interesting? Very. Can you tell me about the other planets? Not tonight. Please? No, you must heal. His chair straightened and she carefully guided him to the spare room.